Go Gators! Hail State!
Go Doors, anchor down.
Woo! Pig Suey!
Go Dogs, sick 'em. Woo, woo, woo. Go Tide.
So it's a special Too Much Dip live stream. I can't make it through that entire video. I just can't.
It's the barking for me.
The barking is where I turn it off. I've never actually heard the young lady say "Go Cox" because I turn it off after the barking because it's just too much. It ends it for me. I think it ended it for Micah too. Micah just left the stream. We just started.
You need to be a Tigers girl with all of the energy that Micah's chair has when he's not in it.
I'm back for more content.
There he is.
Hello,
I'm Dave. Cam. To my left to my right. I don't know how it works. It's KJ, then Micah, then Dylan. You guys know that. It's an emergency podcast. No one's calling it that. We got to talk SEC because we're some of us are SEC guys now. Some of us.
Well, we're all sitting in SEC country at this point.
We really are.
Hey, before we dive in, can I give a quick shout out to a friend of the program real quick?
And a friend of the Pope.
So okay. Brent Rooker, our boy who plays for the he's in the Twins organization, also a Mississippi State alum. So there's an SEC tie-in here. He was called up recently and went deep in a game. Pretty cool. But interesting part about that game, the Twins out-homered the Tigers 7-0 and lost the game. Pretty wild stat line. 17 of 14 was the final. But shouts to Brent. Doubt he cares too much since he went yard. Brought the lumber. Let's go.
Wow, that is a sick name drop, Dylan.
Big game.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Can I shout someone out?
Yeah, we'll just do shout. Go ahead, Micah.
Sure. Thank you. This is like inside the NBA where Charles is like, "Can I do a shout out?" And Ernie's like, "Of course you can, Charles. We pay you millions of dollars." It's the same thing. Shouts to the guy at Greater Goods Coffee Shop who gave me his seat today and said, "Hey, Micah, love the pods," and then walked out before I could even ask if he was coming to the meetup. Shouts to you.
Very cool.
He was wearing a howler hat. He looked like a really cool guy. I noticed him from across the room, and then he shouted me out. So shouts to him.
That was a very Charles-esque or Barkley-esque shout out when it's some random woman he met in line at a Chick-fil-A because he forgot his wallet for the 50th time.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you know
I wish he would have given me a bracelet, but he did not.
Let me say this. I want to shout out the Modern Market in Westlake down the street from here because I went in for a quick lunch. I got the protein bowl. My protein of choice was salmon, probably farm raised, but that's okay. And I sat down and it was immediately brought out to me within 60 seconds. So I had I was in and I was out. It was very tactical. And the thing I like most about that market particularly is that it's modern. It's very modern.
Sure.
KJ, you want to shout anybody out?
I'd like to shout out my good friend Hot Colin for taking Will on a date last night. Hopefully we'll hear more about his experience at the Q2 arena here soon.
Damn, with those two in there, it was QT arena. Okay. Those guys are cute. Seriously, though, let's talk football because college football can't get here soon enough.
Well, that's certainly true, Dave. Do you guys want to shout out the meetup tomorrow?
Yeah, I guess we may as well. If you want to come, if you want to meet two of us or three, Mike, are you going to be there?
Doubtful.
Okay. If you want to meet Dylan and I,
2 to 3 of us will be there.
Yeah, we'll be at Eisenhower's from about 3 o'clock on. Dylan will be there till it closes. I'll probably be there for a few hours though.
Dylan will not be there. Dylan will be there till it's time for dinner, and then he's gonna probably dip.
So how about a backer bring you dinner to Eisenhower's?
Look, I need to hit the pause button at some point, KJ. I got to take a break. I got to reset. I need a full tummy. Then I'll probably get another couple hours in after that. All right, let me do my thing.
Fair. There's gonna be one pair of footsteps in the sand. It's gonna be you carrying the pod's representation at the meetup. So I appreciate that.
That's right.
Hey, RT, the too much dip tweet if you haven't already. I'm pulling back the curtain. This is me micromanaging the squad. We got to talk. We got to talk college football. Yeah, I know I would, dude. How do I look in the new studio?
It looks fantastic.
You look like shit. You look like shit, dude. No offense.
No, you were. Yeah, Randy's right here. Even though Randy told me he didn't even do this, he said it was all the
Just
intern.
kidding. You look cute as hell, Dave. Look at you, man, sipping that coffee. God,
I'm on my
look at
cutest
you.
behavior right now.
Oh. All right, let's talk.
If there's one thing
football.
SEC country likes, it's me talking about how cute I am. So let's talk football, because I guess it's going to happen. Even though 2 weeks ago when this story dropped, I said, "Oh, we're doing this again." You know, kind of like classic. Oh, here we go again. That guy. I was that guy up until about a week ago, I guess, maybe longer than that. But it's happening. Texas and OU, they've unanimously been invited to the SEC
And accepted.
They've accepted their bid. Their first round bids, 100%. You know you're not getting in if it's not 100%, Micah.
Micah is the most established SEC member here on the podcast.
Yes, certainly.
We didn't have a chance to get your takes last week when we first discussed this. I guess on Monday. That's how quickly this shit's turned around. Were you excited to know that I guess we're excited to have Texas back in the SEC and the Tigers coming to Austin here soon.
Yeah, from a simply personal, selfish standpoint, I am thrilled. This is exciting. I get to see my team play. I can get in the car and go to Oklahoma. These are games that are, attainable to me in all sorts of sports. I'm excited to see the Tigers back in Austin. That's great. When this first broke, I know there were a lot of people that said, obviously, the first thing I thought of was, this is hilarious because of the poor Aggies, and the little brother mentality just made me laugh for like 25 minutes in a row.
Oh, yeah.
And then I realized people were saying, oh, well, Missouri and A&M are both going to be anti-Texas. And so then I had to rush to defend the Tigers. Let me just say, there's no animosity anymore. The animosity that was there between the Big 12 and UT was several chancellors and university presidents ago. It was also based around the fact that Texas won all of the power struggles with the Big 12, including moving the headquarters of the league from Kansas City to Dallas, moving the championship game from St. Louis to Dallas, all of the things, the Longhorn Network, of course. The reality is Texas isn't the big swinging dick of the SEC. They aren't, and they won't be. They will be an equal member just like everyone else, even though they, may be in the city with the most venture capital money in the footprint.
VC.
Which should lead to something else down the line. But Texas can't bully Missouri anymore. So I don't. And if you look at the records of the teams over the last 10 years, Missouri has a better record than the University of Texas, especially in
Micah.
play.
Aside from Will and Austin, who called in the Paul Feinbaum show, who was saying that Texas is going to be the big swinging dick?
No, nobody is saying that.
I haven't seen that take yet.
Straw man argument, Micah.
My point is that was where the irritation was from the A&M has their own set of things, but from the Missouri side, when people said Missouri hates Texas, they're going to oppose this. The feeling was that Texas used to really push people around, and my point is they won't be able to do that in the SEC. Nobody's saying they will, and because of that, I'm fine with them.
Is there a big swinging D in the SEC as of now? Do we assume it's Alabama?
Well, I think it's Alabama in one sense, but none of the schools in the SEC politically control the league the way Texas and Oklahoma, to a lesser extent, control the Big 12 now,
right,
and controlled it for years.
Right, because I think on the field, success certainly leads to them having the most attention, but it's good to know as far as like the decisions for the conference at large, they don't have that kind of pool, because I was wondering if that sort of leverage would only last, I don't know, Nick Saban's like 78 years old. Like that run is going to come to an end at some point. Like,
yeah, this sounds corny and Dylan's going to roll his eyes here, but And I didn't believe this, and I didn't understand it until my school was in the best conference in college football. But there's a reason they do the fucking stupid SEC chant, and it's because there's a feeling of
insecurity.
Well, yes, that too. But there isn't a feeling of, everyone feels equal to a certain extent.
Isn't that ironic?
What are you talking about? Why? How so? How so, Micah?
Because you don't have Texas threatening to destroy your conference if they don't get exactly what they want. No one has there is no Crimson Tide network. There is sort of a camaraderie built around the competition. And I don't know if you guys know this, but it just means more.
Oh my gosh.
This is insufferable.
This is
your life.
Yeah, this is your onboarding.
You better,
Well, Micah, how many fans of other programs would agree with what you just said on that? There's like an equal footing and equal, like a camaraderie among all the teams. Is that a sentiment shared among Alabama and LSU? Or is
I
that
believe
like
it to
Missouri?
be I believe it to be a sentiment that is shared. That everyone, all of the schools in the league want what's best for the league, and they're in a way that some other schools and conferences don't operate.
I don't want to make this like everybody just airing their grievances with the SEC, but I do want to provide a little anecdotal evidence here that the only people I've ever seen out in public chanting SEC were mid to bottom tier schools. It was never you don't ever see like a bunch of Alabama fans, at least where I'm hanging out, which I go out like once every 3 months. Check me out tomorrow at Eisenhower's. It's very rarely you don't see a bunch of Alabama fans doing it. Like it's never like the most winning programs doing that. It's always the bottom teams. There, it's like, well, at least our conference is doing well. Yay!
Go.
Yeah, it's almost like
Yay!
It's almost like these like Dave said, bottom tier teams. It's almost like they're just happy to be there, and like they take pride in just getting pulverized by Alabama every year, so they can like rub it in Texas' face or Ohio State's face. Like, yeah, we have a losing record, but we're playing the toughest schedule, in the country. So it's just like it's a coattail thing seemingly, and
With the new,
I mean, just at the Aggies, Dylan. Just at them.
it's not just A&M.
with
A&M
the new-
has done fairly well so far in the SEC.
with the new additions, does that mentality change in terms of us thinking only of the bottom tier? South Carolina, it's a great, respectable program, some great players, but they haven't necessarily had the most success in the conference in football. Vanderbilt obviously speaks for itself. Same for Kentucky. Georgia's been right at the cusp. Florida's had a history of success, as has Georgia in the past, but like Tennessee, again, it's been a couple decades plus since you've really had any considerable success. So like when talking about the SEC, we tend to focus on those. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, you can throw in there as well. Now, if you add two schools like Texas, I might put Texas in that Tennessee kind of rung of like, it's been a while, but Oklahoma immediately shoots to the top of that conference in terms of credibility. Adding a team to the middle and adding a team to the top, do we begin to focus more on, all right, there were some ways to poke holes in the actual strength of the conference. Now it's just kind of foregone conclusion. Like the Big Ten only has Ohio State, Michigan, sometimes Michigan State to lean on. Pac-12, Oregon, maybe. USC, maybe. I don't even know if I can go third deep there confidently in that conference. Like, is it a foregone conclusion? Yes. Best conference ever, or not ever, in the country. And do they lose some of that like paper tiger type thing for the rest of the conference?
Micah?
It hard to say.
Good answer.
Yeah. It's a fair question. It's a good question. I am of the belief, and I'm not really going to answer your question, but that we are on the precipice of a larger national expansion, not just in the SEC, but across some consolidation, conferences merging, that we're headed towards, whatever that is, a super conference situation. And I would, back to your question, adding Texas and Oklahoma, both, that makes your conference stronger, period. Any league that is expanding would like those two schools. And the fact that the SEC has them, it helps the league. They're going to generate more revenue. It's going to be, and it all goes back to money. In Texas and Oklahoma, Texas especially, are two very rich athletic departments and alumni bases and all of that stuff.
I think you hit on a good question. Would any of the other conferences be looked at as the SEC type strength or stronger had they taken Texas and OU? Would Big 12 or the Big 10 or the Pac-12, would you then look at them as the power conference in the country had these two teams gone to either of those?
I think the Big 10,
Or
if the
ACC,
Big
I can't
10 were
remember ACC.
the Big 10 specifically, if they were to add Oklahoma and Texas, that's a pretty compelling upgrade for them. Not necessarily like where these programs are today, because who knows, and who knows when these changes are actually going to happen. But that you add those two, and those are new recruiting areas for that conference and a new footprint. That's something that could have, that now you're talking, and that's a way you go back and renegotiate. It all goes back to money again. But if you add those schools, you renegotiate your deals, you're richer. You could be making as much as the SEC schools are. And I think the Big 10 generally does. Go ahead, Dave.
Question regarding recruiting. Forgive my lack of A&M knowledge, but when did they start seeing the returns on them becoming SEC? Like, were they landing bigger or better recruits, better classes before Jimbo?
Sumlin. And they were SEC for that. Manziel, Sumlin is really, I don't know if it was chicken or egg, because it was so quick into the SEC timeline when they got Manziel's success. And I always say Manziel, but really, I mean, everybody around him.
Manziel, Mike Evans, but like Manziel wasn't a highly touted recruit. I mean, he was, So I'm just, was it more like, did Manziel build that? Or was, it's hard. We'll never be able to know, but I'm just curious how much of it, them moving to the SEC, actually allowed them to start recruiting better. And I guess we should probably have it. Go ahead, Dylan.
It definitely had a big part. I mean, it was many factors, of course, contributed to it. But their recruits, and I used to follow recruiting much closer than I do now. But their recruits would come out and say, like, I am choosing Texas A&M because, first of all, I live in Texas. I want to play close to home. And I want to play in the SEC, so it's absolutely a leg up on the recruiting trail, and they benefit from it pretty much right away.
And back to the Johnny chicken or an egg thing, Johnny won the Heisman because he beat Alabama,
right?
And if he would have beat, Kansas State, or if he even beat Oklahoma, if they were still in the Big 12, it probably doesn't generate the same amount of interest and excitement, and he might not win the Heisman, even if he had the exact same season playing a Big 12 schedule.
So, I'd compare it to RG3.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying he won it, but it's possible. The whole thing is a little bit different. RG3 was
I can answer your question. Never mind. This is a 7-year-old article. I apologize for jumping in there. I was going to say there's an article that basically lays it out from 2010 onward, but it wouldn't get us as far as we thought. So disregard that.
I have the big question I have in all this is, we know that it's happening. Everything's been confirmed at this point. It's the when that is a little unclear to me. 2025 is when it's supposed to start contractually, right? I tweeted something about that yesterday about how Texas and OU having a 4-year farewell tour is going to be pretty aggressive. And immediately people started chiming in saying, it's most likely going to happen next year. And of course, today, I think it was today, Texas AD Chris Del Conte said he basically just reaffirmed we fully intend to start playing in the SEC in 2025. Why is there so much optimism that it's going to be much sooner? I know we kind of touched on this before, KJ. But why is everyone so confident that it's going to happen much sooner than that?
I think I want to answer your question. I want to also bring up that note when we were talking about the amount of money the conference could make real quick. They were talking about just adding these two teams. The SEC was projected by USA Today, I think, is projected to generate $1.3 billion in revenue, equivalent to what the entire NCAA generates as a whole. Now, I don't know if that's saying all of the conferences combined or just the NCAA as an organization for all of the events they oversee. I think it's the latter. Which goes along with what Mike was saying as far as the increased amount of money here. In terms of the timing, going back to that point with the money, I think that creates your motivation, and cutting that distance down probably equals dollars. It's severing contracts. It's dealing with the litigation, which I do want David's insight on here in a second. And if the money is that big, it sounds like the dollars are going to be there in very short order to make that happen. It's just a matter of, okay, what's the soonest that we want to upset any of our future planned out of conference agreements? Because, you know, Alabama might have a game booked with the Stanford in 2024 that they would then maybe have to back out of. And what's all the fallout if we do make this shift sooner? So I think it's going to happen. It's just going to equal money. And where's the break even on that? And they want it sooner than later. The other part real quick is the shift from 4 teams to 12 teams for the college football playoff is projected to be approved before all this went down. This may change things. Was projected to be approved this year and to go in effect for next season's college football playoff. So I think there's an urgency if you're Texas and Oklahoma to make sure that you're in the bigger boat when that happens, because as we all have known, the Big 12's kind of gotten a poor shake. You would think getting to 12 teams makes it more guaranteed, but now you have no question about your credibility of your schedule if you make that move sooner. So I think there's motivation. I think there's means. It's just a matter of when that break even is. So again, my guess is 2 to 3 years.
The other thing that I would say here, the other factor is if you're Kansas, if you're Oklahoma State, the scramble starts right now to get into a conference that's better than what's left of the Big 12. If for example, I would not like this because I dislike the state of Kansas and that university. But if the Big Ten called and said, we wanted to bring Kansas, you're a Midwestern school in a Midwestern state, a big state school, come join our conference. Kansas is leaving tomorrow. They're leaving yesterday. The same thing for Oklahoma State if they could squeeze their way into the Pac-12. Now, I don't know if these scenarios are likely to happen, but the way that Texas and Oklahoma just said, every man for themselves, we're fucking out of here, peace. You've got to imagine that these other schools have got to be taking the same approach, or you'd be fool not to. And at that point, if the Big 12 if Kansas leaves tomorrow, the Big 12 doesn't exist. You know, it's not just Kansas, but if these schools start scrambling, which they will, I don't see a scenario where the Big 12 adds 2 teams to replace Texas and Oklahoma and stays intact. Right. I mean, I just feel like the end of the Big 12 is going to come before 2025. So at that point, they'll be free to go to the SEC whenever that league dissolves.
David, do you want to touch on the litigation part? Because I think what Micah just said ties to that, because the litigation side, I think from Bowlesby, is a threat not just to Oklahoma, Texas, and ESPN. It's a threat to the other 8 about not going into these conversations behind the back of their contract to try to keep that together. Because if the Big 12 dissolves, Texas and Oklahoma leave without owing back 75, 76 million or whatever the increased amount of money was. Like, that saves everybody, and in turn, ESPN some money if they're able to break up the Big 12 before then.
Yeah, we saw the cease and desist that was sent over to ESPN. I think everybody got a good laugh about it. But that is kind of the step 1 for litigation, right? So you send that over. And I think what they're claiming, and they say they've got evidence for this, although they haven't laid it out, and they're not going to lay it all out yet, is tortious interference of contract. So you've got Big 12 contractually obligated to Texas and then to OU. And then you have ESPN, who I guess they're alleging basically orchestrated this whole deal, which they did, right? That's what drives all this. That's what drives matchups. It's all about television. That's where the money is. So it's going to be fun. I don't think if ESPN has to drop a bag to make this go away without getting into depositions and getting trial dates set and whatnot, they will. Like, there hasn't been a lawsuit filed. I don't know if there will be. Anytime you make predictions in something like this, you're going to be wrong. So I'm not going to say much, but it's kind of fun to watch from afar, because it is petty. And anytime people get to see like legalese and like cease and desists and how passive aggressive the language is and how just like petty and childish and unnecessary a lot of it is, it's really funny, because this is what litigation attorneys do every day.
I liked ESPN's response, or any response to a cease and desist always has like some unnecessarily petty language in it. Like, you get 1 or 2 adjectives thrown in when it's like frivolous, unfounded, baseless, ridiculous, outlandish claims by the plaintiff here. Like, okay, dude, we get it. Yeah, you disagree, you refute the claims. Let's move on. But they've got to like word soup the whole thing.
So KJ, you would have just preferred a statement on ESPN letterhead that said, "Nah."
Exactly. Maybe nah, comma fam. Period.
No,
Famously, Mark Cuban responded to after winning the 2011 NBA championship. Mark Cuban responded to a group of investors, or a group of Ross Perot Jr. being one of them, suing him for a number of things. And on his it was the answer to a lawsuit, and he submitted this to the court. It was just a photo of the Mavs hoisting the trophy, which I think, and he filed that in court. I think that's never been done before. But I love it when this stuff gets petty. And this could be, I mean, like KJ said, or Micah said, like, these schools are going to start dropping. Kansas, if Kansas has a chance to press reset on their I guess at least on their football program, they're going to. And they're obviously an asset.
David, come on. What has been embarrassing about Kansas football recently?
They did beat Texas a few years back.
They did beat Texas.
They did. Yeah.
I mean, if you're Bowlesby in the Big 12, obviously you're scrambling to add teams that solidify your conference, but I don't know what teams are available or programs are available out there that you could pluck to like make that an attractive conference, like a sustainable conference.
Let's focus on, I guess, real quick. If you're the Big 12 and you're going to add feasibly, who could that be, or who would that be? I think everyone's attention immediately goes to your BYUs and your Boise States. Terrible TV markets, but real programs with real fan bases, histories of winning, and you're in different regions.
Yeah. You obviously can't pull from any of the Power 5 conferences. You have to look elsewhere.
And you probably don't want to
12 right now.
You probably don't. I don't think a school like Houston is going to leave the AAC to go to a zombie Big 12. I just, another school in the state. I don't think that makes sense.
Am I crazy to think that like a school like TCU or Baylor would be more likely to leave and go to the AAC than U of H going to like what's left of the Big 12? I mean, because if you think about it, with the expanded playoff and everything, like teams like TCU and Baylor, like, say what you want about them, but that puts them in a good position to at least be in the conversation for a playoff down the road.
Baylor is the defending national champions in men's basketball too, the other sport that matters in college sports. So, Baylor, but Baylor's not going to the Pac-12.
No.
Do you think anybody at Cal Berkeley is going to look at the student code of conduct at Baylor and the rules that they have and the anti-LGBTQ stuff that I don't know exactly what the specifics are, but let's not act like Baylor is the most progressive university. In fact, they're one of the least progressive schools. And so that invite to the Pac-12 is not coming. That invite from the Big Ten is not coming. So Baylor is, they've got to try and broker some deal to either bring in the best schools out there that are still out there, or, I mean, I just don't know. It's got to be a tough spot if you're a Baylor person.
Well, if the Board of Regents at Baylor has taught me anything, it's that they will do the opposite of what they should do.
Which leads me to say the other available teams, I think, from the AAC, what they have to offer. I'm not even going to mention SMU as an SMU homer. They offer the city of Dallas, which is valuable, but you have TCU, and so you kind of have a foothold in the DFW market. So you're not adding to the Big 12 in that regard. But the AAC does have Cincinnati, who finished in the top 10 last year and is, on the uprise with a legitimate top-tier coach when you're thinking in the short term, and it's a big city. You have Memphis, you have UCF, which has 40,000 students and a large alumni base, even though the school's not that old. Same thing with USF, like 32,000 or 35,000 students in their undergrad base. So huge markets. What is that? Tampa Bay and Orlando and another state in big cities. So the AAC has some teams to offer. I think the only way that the Big 12 survives is if you can package those four and essentially chop the head off of the AAC and bring them to the Big 12 and throw money at them, because the AAC dished out less than $5 million a team last year. So unless they were to absorb or combine with the Big 12 and take the Big 12's contracts, or vice versa, the ESPN brings them all and pays for everything, you've got to have more money to throw at an Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, TCU, Baylor, any of those schools to make it worth their time to go the other direction. I think there's going to be some sort of combination of those. I don't see, and I have all due respect for Iowa State. I think they're type of school that kind of gets left out to dry here. I think your Tulanes are at risk of getting left out to dry here. I think your there's one other AAC school I can't think of. Navy would probably go back to being independent. Wichita State is a basketball team in the AAC. They may hang around as a basketball component only, but who knows? It's going to be some combination of those. But if anything, I don't see those names hanging around. Maybe you just keep 15 or so of those teams. And it's not going to be Notre Dame. I saw that in the chat. Notre Dame's not even going to go to the AAC. Like, that's their easiest, doorstep right there for them to either go to the Big Ten, which Northwestern wouldn't want.
Well, they did last year, sort of.
Well, they were in the AAC last year, but they whatever.
Or ACC.
Or ACC. I'm sorry. We got that bag, and we're good. We still have all this NBC money until there's another Matt Lauer incident that tanks NBC stock and pockets. Notre Dame's going nowhere.
Yeah, the thing that I want to happen is I'd like to see the AAC and the Big 12 merge. What's left of it, I'm sure the more prestigious schools will do everything they can to get to a bigger conference. And I think, KJ, this is great news for you, because SMU, with the NIL rules, is now in a position to get the Metroplex and dominate it, because the only reason they couldn't compete with TCU on a year-to-year basis was TCU was in a bigger, better conference. Now that's gone. SMU will bury Gary Patterson. He'll be singing the blues for years to come. I love it. I want this to happen. I want to see SMU and their alumni dial up the Pony Express 2.0 and just start paying the shit out of everyone and own the Metroplex. I love it. I love it for you, and I love you, KJ. This is for you, buddy.
The feeling is mutual. I do want to touch on an NIL topic here. I feel like there's one that comes up every week that just blows my effing mind. Did y'all see? We saw the Quinn Ewers, quarterback from South Lake Carroll, undisputed #1 quarterback in the nation, graduating in 2022 out of football powerhouse South Lake Carroll. So a very well-to-do neighborhood and school. That's where Chase Daniel, I'm sorry, Mizzou alum is from. Any other South Lake people that people know on a national basis? I feel like that's probably the biggest name. There's a bunch.
Don't think so.
Riley Dodge, Seth Dodge, head coaches that just played in the
big players in the high school sports minute.
Yeah, for sure. Anyhow, their quarterback, Quinn Ewers, who's currently committed to Ohio State, told a reporter from Yahoo Sports that he was, quote unquote, leaning towards skipping his senior year and enrolling at Ohio State so that he could take advantage of his already on the table NIL offers, which he's prevented from accepting as a high schooler. Thoughts on the cannibalization of high school sports by the NIL if this comes to pass?
Yeah, the question that I have is, and every headline and story that I read about this said, he's gonna go to Ohio State because the state of Texas doesn't allow high school players to profit on their NIL. Is the Texas legislature going to call an additional special session if the Democrats ever come back from Washington, D.C., to pay high school football athletes? Because that's the final frontier.
Plot twist. Is it less likely because it's players from South Lake Carroll and not David Ruff's high school, Duncanville, where our fine governor hails from as well? If this was a Duncanville player who was, the story would read, this money would free his family from the reins of poverty, but the mean old Texas legislature, does that law get changed, David?
Frozen KJ.
Dave's gone dark.
Randy,
we're having problems here. I got you still, Micah. Dave's frozen.
Nope. KJ just checked out.
This is not going well.
Well, this is fun.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all can
is
hear me.
fun.
Randy just walked out. I don't know where he's at. Oh, God dang it.
We got.
Well, it says I'm still alive, so maybe
Yeah.
it's just me. Well, this is embarrassing. I guess I can stall. Randy, something happened. I think our internet's out again.
David, I can
Yeah,
see
this is
you.
Oh, you can see
Dylan
me?
is
Is
stuck.
it just a KJ issue?
It
very
was Dylan,
choppy,
but
though,
now
Dave.
now Dylan's back, and KJ is gone.
There we go.
I'm-
Oh,
There's
we're back.
He's back. Wow, full speed, full
Yeah, I
strength.
had to jump out and jump back in. I think it was a StreamYard thing. So
Okay.
I think my question broke the internet there.
Dude,
Hey.
epic.
Do you care to answer? Is Greg Abbott the only thing sitting between the NIL rules being a law in Texas?
That's a great question, and I do like the angle of Greg being a Duncanville alum. Yeah, I mean, I think he knows what plays in Texas. Like, I mean, he probably has his eyes on a Senate seat or something down the road, maybe something bigger than governor. I don't know if he has any shot at that, but he's generally kind of a populist in the state of Texas in how he governs. So that would not shock me whatsoever. But I'm glad you did bring up Duncanville, because SMU has established quite the Duncanville pipeline, thanks to Reggie Samples. And I don't know if you wanted to opine on that, KJ. We don't have to turn this into the Duncanville Sports Minute, but
I agree with what I think it all leads back to what Mike was saying, that schools and cities like this are going to have a big impact from a recruiting standpoint. There's no question your blue bloods like Texas A&M are going to be able to throw $100,000 or what was it, $10,000 for an interview per player just from fans of their discussion board. Like, those kind of things are going to happen in other places. And we're going to have people sit down with like Ross Perot's grandson at dinner and all walk home with a few $100,000 in their pockets. Like, things are going to change in a quick manner. I don't think conference affiliation will have shit to do with that, with the exception of like, what type of exposure can this kid get? I would fear more of the like high schoolers who become TikTok stars who also play sports. I don't know. This sounds ridiculous, but a Matty B might be a more attractive recruit these days who could make some effing money because he brings more attention to your program and you can pay him for it.
Matty B was the first person that came to my mind too. Shouts to Matty B Raps.
I have a question about the Quinn Ewers thing. Is he, if he were to leave a year early, skip his senior year of high school, would he be able to join the Ohio State program, or he just sit out a year just to get paid? That's what he's proposing here. I'm a little
The
confused
rule
on
with
that.
enrolling early usually means you have to graduate high school. So he would still have to qualify for the NCAA clearinghouse. So he would have to have obtained his high school diploma and or his GED. So maybe Quinn Ewers has already finished whatever he needs to do to be able to do that.
So as long as he gets, okay, I got
Really,
you.
we're just moving the needle from him enrolling in January to enrolling in the fall and skipping football. I'm excited for the time where players like, no, I'm going to stay in high school. I'll be there in January, but I'm not playing any of these games because I'm going to protect my legs.
Are people mad about that, the Quinn Ewers thing? I saw the story, but has there like been any pushback? I know there's been way bigger stories in sports the last week or so, but
I haven't seen any blowback, but I would imagine the same guy who would yell at like a college player, insert Leonard Fournette or something for skipping a bowl game. It's the same guy who is big pro capitalism. So I'm again, that is not a shot in any direction. It's just, I think that circle is one. And so you're not going to see, they're confused on what their angle is here.
get that
I
money.
just worry.
Or not.
I guess I just worry about it becoming a trend and it just, I don't know, becoming a widespread. I don't know. I mean, if you can get paid, go get paid. I'm not gonna fault you for that. But if this became like a common thing, you could. I don't know.
I can't imagine this is going to be something that's going to affect more than a handful of kids each year.
True.
Certainly, in like going back to, is the legislature going to come in and change a rule? Like, how many kids in Texas is this going to actually affect that are going to be able to get money in high school? Maybe many, I don't know. But like, apparently this kid is like the 14th. He has the 14th ranked number of he's got 70,000 followers or something. And that's ranked 14th in college football right now. He's not in college football. So that's where his value is. I don't know if there's another high school kid in America that has that, or not another, I'm sure there's some cheerleader or something that may be eligible for money with NIL with a lot of creepy followers. This is something Darren Ravel has talked about because he's a creep. But anyway,
so you're saying the gateway to being the number one recruit and getting that bag is to buy followers your freshman year of high school and let that bitch grow, and then show up a couple practices.
Well, it was like Dave, you saw the Dana White press conference, or he put out a press conference. Somebody was complaining that they weren't getting paid enough, and they should be getting the same money as one of the Paul brothers. And Dana White said, well, you should have been on a Disney show when you were 6 and then started a YouTube channel and done content for it every day for 10 years and had millions of followers. And then I would pay you as much as one of the Paul brothers. So this isn't fair, but that is the way. There is money in this, and somebody's going to figure that out.
Yeah, it is going to be different, like how it's perceived. Like I said, I don't know if I've seen any backlash on the Quinn Ewers thing, but KJ mentioned, South Lake is a really well-off area, extremely well-off, versus a kid who, whose family comes from nothing. And if he has a chance to go get paid for his family, it's 17 or 18,
yeah,
there's, you know what I mean? We may not like it because we really like high school football and, some of us more than others, but you can't be mad at him for that.
Go get the bag. I get it.
Let's bring this back.
Oh, wait, hang on, KJ, real quick. I'll ask a question for you guys. If you are the best high school football player in Texas, it's certainly at your high school, at a powerhouse, a school that's likely to make a run in the playoffs, how much money, how big is that bag that you're going to need to say no to that senior year of high school, which is, for a lot of people, the most fun year of sports they're ever going to have? I've talked to people that have played in the NFL and coaches and stuff, and they say that my senior year in high school was the best year I had. I mean, if it's 20 grand, you're waiting. If it's 100, what is the number?
Yeah. If you're a 17-year-old kid and the jobs you can get at 17 or a lifeguard, or you work at the sandwich shop and you're making $12-15 an hour. Not there's anything wrong with that, but if someone puts $100,000 in front of your face, how could you say no to that?
My
That's
answer is
difficult.
Probably way less than that. Again, I'm not assuming I'm Quinn Ewers, and I'm also not, if I'm the number one player, I assume my value is much higher. But if I'm just random Joe Blow and just one of the best players at my school, that bag is a lot smaller than you probably would assume. As long as I can quote unquote be eligible and get out of high school, nobody in high school, especially in football or in that world, is concerned about their prom or finishing out the season with their pals. They're like, all right, whatever. I'm the kid who can write D1 on my Twitter handle and put a little bag emoji, and you can catch me at the park after school. Whatever. I won't be at the park. You know what I mean? I'll count that money and move on with my life. It's going to be more than 25 grand, whatever the minimum wage is that I would earn as a full-time employee somewhere bagging groceries, but it's going to be a lot less than 100 grand unless there's a parental unit around to be no, you're sticking around in school or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a lot.
The issue to me becomes the same. It's the same as players skipping their bowl games and skipping the second half of their season or whatever it might be in the past. If you go back to 10 minutes ago before the NIL happened, right? People were mad that players were opting out. They weren't representing their school or whatever there was, but it was a risk mitigation strategy because I can't get paid here.
Mm-hmm.
And I can get paid there. And if I get hurt here, I won't get paid there. So this kid is basically doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And it is interesting. And if you're a high school football coach, of course you're going to push back against it, but you're probably going to lose. I think that we're a capitalist society. I think the money is going to win here.
Hey, let me just say that I think this just means we need another season of Friday Night Lights with this angle.
Amen.
Little confession here. I've watched 0 episodes of the TV show Friday Night Lights.
What?
Yeah, me neither.
AJ.
I've watched the movie.
Micah.
I've never seen the TV show.
Wow.
That's very surprising.
Dylan just watched The Wire.
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
I will say, Dylan and I were talking about White Lotus, way off topic here, but I don't know her name, but the lady who's in that's also in Friday Night Lights. Seeing her, how good she is in that show is making me.
Connie Britton.
Connie Britton, yeah.
Connie Britton.
Last thought on SEC, and to kind of tie it back to this high school talk we kind of delved into there. Until we see a sign that conference affiliation or school caliber actually equals more dollars in a pocket, or we see smaller schools in bigger markets begin to kind of bark back that they also can have that bag dropped, I think the jury's still out on what the NIL does to quote unquote the competitive balance, because I don't think the most money is going to come from an Alabama, although they've got the biggest fan base, when you include t-shirt fans and whatnot. I still think it's going to be a Northwestern if they had a good run, or a school that's in a big conference in a big city. A USC would be.
What about Duke? Could Duke become a football powerhouse overnight if its boosters decided we're each going to
big enough, I guess, maybe,
Yeah.
But it would have to be in North Carolina with like that brand's, I think a place willing to sacrifice its brand for the bag, a la North Carolina, like that could do some damage. Mac Brown might be in the right place at the right time.
Hey,
I think I'll just make a prediction here. They're all going to sacrifice their brand for the bag. This may be like, to me, it reminds me of the one and done situation where Coach K and people said, we'll never do that. We'll never do that. And then they watched Kentucky dominate for 3 seasons, said, all right, let's do it. Like, you've got to embrace the bag, fuck your brand. And the schools that embrace it today or yesterday are going to have an advantage over the ones that say, oh, we're academia. Our university doesn't operate this way. It's not the way this is. That's not the way this is going to end up.
I do it every day. I get my bag every day. Fuck the brand. I don't care. Hey, what does this mean for scheduling in the SEC? What are they going to do? Add a game?
Absolutely nobody in week 11 because it's a sham of a conference schedule.
Well, the rumor, I'm going to ignore that. The rumor is that there is going to be a 4-team pod system.
The pod system.
Right here.
And this is a rumor that was also amplified on SEC Network during media days, where they just put up a graphic, a possible pod system, which would be Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas in one pod, A&M, LSU, the Mississippi schools in the other, and then whatever. There would be 4-team pods.
Gosh, Vanderbilt would get screwed there because they would throw Vandy, Bama, Auburn, and Tennessee probably in a pod, and then you'd have Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, and I'm missing. Oh, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Vandy would.
You got to have Texas. You got to have Texas and Texas A&M in the same pod.
Well,
I would like to see Texas,
you wouldn't
Texas
have.
A&M,
They wouldn't be.
Arkansas.
The thing that I've seen is they wouldn't be in the same pod, but that you would play the other 3 teams in your pod every year. You would play one rival from another division every year, and that would be the A&M game. And then you'd have a rotation of the other schools. Shouts to Alex Lackey or Alec Lackey, Lacey, whatever your name is, who called me trash and said I peaked in high school. But I will say this is a good tweet. College kids love pods. Everyone knows this.
Sure,
that's true. They do.
It's a
and look, if you're a
joke.
Texas or Texas A&M fan, we've been without that rivalry game for a long time now, and we have it back. I'm very excited for that. I'm a fan of the pod system. I think it could potentially work. When are we going to find out how the alignment's going to look? Do we know?
Well, they've got to join the conference officially.
I think
I doubt that it'll be announced in 2025.
Somebody else is going to have to move. I think whatever happens with the Big 12 or other schools moving is going to happen. I think this also, last random thought, if I'm Nebraska, am I happy with what happened to me going to the Big 10? Like, has this proved useful to me? Like, would I be willing to listen to if the Big 12 called me back? Because I'd be the big gorilla in that room. Same thought to Colorado. Like, they've definitely benefited from their moves, but they haven't had success. Like, are there schools that might look to make a change? Colorado State is another one that's been thrown out there. Like, I think there's going to be other movement from some of those big conferences. Until that happens, we won't know schedules or anything for SEC.
I have a question for Dylan, since you just referred to Texas as we. Longhorn fans have to be at least a little bit conflicted by this move. And I haven't really asked your opinion. You might have said it on another podcast, but Like, what is your excitement level? And then also, don't you feel at least like a little bit of, I won't say shame, but this feeling of, I've spent 9 years making fun of the Aggies. Oh, we're so great. You're in the SEC. Ha ha. Oh, it just means more. And now it sort of does mean more, and you've realized it. Like, you're 9 years late to the party, and what you've poo-pooed your rival for, you can't poo-poo them for anymore. I'm just wondering, where's your head at, Dorn?
Wow. Loaded question.
This is you're directing this at Texas fans generally, I think. I haven't had these takes. A&M absolutely made the right move. I've never said anything to the contrary. I think the shade being cast that way is just about how A&M is going to get run over in the SEC, and I believe the same applies for Texas. I think this is going to be a pretty rude awakening, quality of football wise. Excitement wise, though, I'm very excited for this. I've never been a fan of the Big 12. I don't like the destination cities. I just think it doesn't mean as much to fans of Big 12 teams as it does to SEC teams. And so I'm all about it. I think it's going to be a tough go, especially for the first 5 years or so. Excitement level, though, it's through the roof. I'm very pumped for it. A&M, we Texas fans still get to laugh at Texas A&M a little bit throughout all this because they were so adamant about being the only Texas team in the SEC. That was a major pride factor for them, and they were beating their chests about that for a while. And
no, they didn't, dude. They voted for it, man. None of that ever happened. They voted for it.
Yeah, they voted for it. Yeah, sure.
So you're talking about the destination city. So you're saying if it were you wouldn't choose to spend like several hours in the city of Lubbock instead of mobbing with the boys at Eisenhower's. Like, that's what you're saying? Like, Lubbock's not a destination city that you would go to instead of being an
I'm not going to single out any cities. I think I already took some heat for singling out Manhattan, Kansas earlier this week.
The Little Apples.
Does Ames Iowa
what I mean by destination cities
Waco.
is that if I were to travel to an away game, if I get to go to Oxford, if I get to go to Baton Rouge, Tuscaloosa, places like that, that's just more fun than going and tailgating in Lawrence, Kansas, or Stillwater. I mean, not there's anything wrong with those places, but it's just not the scene it is in Baton Rouge.
Would you say that in Baton Rouge, it just means more?
No, I will not. I will not, to spite you. Even though
Dude,
it may mean more.
We were going to audio if you would have said those words.
I might have brought this up on the other pod or something, but are they going to move Texas OU to AT&T in Arlington? Is that going to be part of this deal? Like, are they going to keep it at the Cotton Bowl? Because that if that happens, and I haven't seen this anywhere, but I'm just, with everything being a money grab.
Yeah, the only booty chatter I've heard about that, it just comes from you guys, I think. I haven't seen anyone talking about that yet. I don't know. It'd be a
I thought the two schools had a deal with the city of Dallas to keep that game in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, they're waiting on Laura Miller to provide more comment on that game. I did have to go back and Google her name because I couldn't get the name Laura Bush out of my head. Yeah.
Yeah, but as we've learned, like, those agreements don't really matter. There's always a way out.
All the events to Six Flags and Hurricane Harbor instead of the State Fair.
Yeah, man, as much as I love Sherlock's in Arlington, I just don't want to see it leave the Cotton Bowl. Dude, sneaky shout out to Cooper Street.
Fair.
Dude, the State Fair, it's an excellent time. Excellent experience.
On Collins Street. Let's wrap things up here. Last thoughts in terms of Texas. We've got some time. I've already predicted Texas in the college football playoffs within 2 years. Dylan's already agreed to that. Any other hot predictions on what will happen between now and when this begins?
No. Look, as a fan of Texas, Texas was already a very hated university, hated football program before this mess. And I think Curry put it kind of well. Our friend of the program, Curry, he tweeted that if you're a Texas fan, you kind of have to just lean into the hate, just kind of embrace it. And so that's what I'm going to try to do. It's going to be tough at times. I understand. Especially these road games this year for the next few for the remaining Big 12 schedule, whatever that looks like. It's gonna be tough, but I'm gonna have to just try to get used to it. I think we'll see.
Texas fans may want to stay off Twitter for the next few.
Yeah, it's gonna be ugly.
Well, that does sort of raise beyond just showing up to a game and getting booed. Every school in the state of Texas, except for Texas, hates this move. The Aggies hate it. And then all the schools in the Big 12 hate it because now their league is dead. Like as if people didn't need to hate Texas enough. This is just an exiting the situation. This is a bad breakup. They're just ghosting the rest of the state. And there's going to be fallout for years to come on this thing.
I think Dylan predicted Lubbock would handle this quite well.
Yeah, the road games in Lubbock. I mean, I fear for the safety of the players out there. It's going to get ugly.
Is there any irony here that my last one is that the Kevin Durant, my next chapter meme, Kevin Durant also being a UT alum, and now he's kind of just pulling that same move he did by moving to the SEC. I think there's some parallels that could be drawn there, but I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of other fallout that will lead us to talk about it more. I'm glad we did this. That's all I got on it.
Yeah, that's all I got. I'm curious. So with Texas, who they stand to make a lot of money on this, will they lower tuition? It's a very expensive state school. I'm just curious if they'll lower tuition because they're a very open-minded school. I'm just curious.
Dylan, I'm glad you mentioned Curry, and because you did, it gives me an opportunity to mention that I recorded a podcast with Curry last week. Talking about this topic. We went in some different directions. So if you want to hear more from me and Curry, who I just call him exclusively Curry, you can hear that on Mind of Micah.
Well
as it's on Backdoor Cover. It was the simulcast. How about that?
Simulcast. He says it like it's in Technicolor.
A simulpod. And of course, check out Micah's Read of the Week, episode 52 in your inbox last Monday, 52 weeks in a row. Cheers to me.
I'm just saying.
All right, go Cox.
Go Cox.
Bye-bye.
I want my chips with the dip. That's all I know. I don't want my chips plain. I want my chips with the dip. So bring them dips.